Colorado offensive coordinator Sean Lewis provided some great insight on Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. I'll talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Buffs.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? This is Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba, and today we got an action-packed episode. We're talking about Sean Lewis and his praise for the two highly touted transfers out of Jackson State. We're going to talk about where Shedeur Sanders is ranked in the Pac-12 as of right now, not by me, by someone else. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Pac-12 media rights deal, which has been an ongoing confusing process. And I think it got a little more clarity, but also a little more confusing at the same time. So we'll find out once we get there. But before we do, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Buffs your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, like always. Okay, let's dive right in. Sean Lewis, the offensive coordinator, who was the head coach that came over from Kent State, left a head coaching job to be the coordinator for Coach Prime in Colorado. Very renowned for his very fast, I believe it was called fast flash offense. One of the fastest offenses in the country, probably the fastest offense in the country. And after one of the spring practices, he was recently asked about Shedeur and Travis and just how the offense was doing. And so when referencing Shedeur, he said he's doing a really good job. He's done a really nice job with all those previous offenses, because if you guys don't know, this will be his third coordinator in third year that he's been a part of. To be able to clear that terminology, learn this new terminology fresh so that he could process quickly, I think he's doing a really nice job. I think that just goes to show you that, I mean, not a huge quote there, but me and John talked about it the other day. I think Shedeur Sanders is one of the smarter quarterbacks in college football, and I think he's had a nice little alarm there. I think he's kind of getting we're finally seeing what he brings to the table, both physically and mentally. And I think on the mental side, playing in 3 offenses in 3 years, you have to be extremely smart to not only learn the offense quickly, execute the offense, and then you kind of got to forget the offense, because obviously you're bringing in new coordinators and stuff. So it's not that easy to just go from offense to offense. And we saw it with a quarterback who I think a lot of people kind of forget about now, but at one point was extremely highly touted. Josh Rosen, he had a different coordinator of offense every year, and his numbers weren't the greatest. He showed potential, but again, like, the change was too much for him. And so I think it kind of shows Shedeur's mentality and his skill set that he could jump into a new offense and just pick up right where he left off with his last one. And if you guys didn't know, he threw for 70 touchdowns and over almost 7,000 yards these past 2 years at Jackson State. So excited to see what he could do in an offense that is extremely quarterback friendly. But yeah, I think Sean Lewis knows what he's working with Shedeur. He's got a huge arm, great capability of picking up the playbook and kind of guiding where everybody needs to go. And John keeps saying that in an offense like this, you got to be like a point guard. And I think Shedeur is someone who will already have the terminology locked down. And he probably, as soon as Sean Lewis was hired, had a playbook sent to him and learned that thing probably the next day. I feel like knowing what we've kind of heard about Shedeur and his preparation. He's worked with Tom Brady. He kind of he understands the mental aspect of the game. And I think that's huge moving forward. He also talked about Travis Hunter, and Travis Hunter is someone who played receiver at Jackson State, but was recruited as a 5-star corner athlete, if you will. And everybody was saying that corner is where he's going to be. And we all knew, like, in the NFL, but he was going to play 2 ways for Coach Prime. I personally questioned what his role would be, and I think we're going to continue to see, even with Coach Lewis talking about his role, I think we're going to continue to see how big of a role he has on offense if he's playing on defense and the offense is as fast as it is. Because 1, you don't want him tired. 2, you don't want to take away from his defensive prowess. Not that it would affect him in any way, because he's obviously a fantastic athlete and he's great at playing both sides of the ball. But I was interested to see if he would actually be on like a snap count, or if there'd only be like certain packages for him. And let's take a look at what Lewis said, because I feel like what Lewis is saying and what Coach Prime are saying, and like what we're hearing about Travis Hunter through these first few spring days, is he has a pretty big role in offense. This is what Lewis said about Travis Hunter. He said he's going to be able to help us on both sides of the ball. He has a very unique skill set that's going to help the team in a lot of different phases. Offensively, he needs to do a great job just finding his route running because he's one of the freakiest athletes on any field he's ever stepped out. Now we're going to get on the field in a very competitive league with really elite DBs. And when he comes across a DB as a wide receiver where talent is equal, how are you going to win? That's where it comes down to techniques and fundamentals in your approach and your work that you do. As he continues to train the right way, I think he's going to be able to add some value in all phases of the game. Of course, none of the fun stuff is going to happen without some work. I think the Travis to Shedeur connection that we saw, I wrote about it over at Athlon. They connected on like what looked like a 40 to 50 yard pass. Great throw, great catch. I think we're learning that Travis still has some a learning curve to handle at Colorado. I think that's no surprise though. I think everybody does, even Shedeur. They got to learn the new offense. For Travis, new offense equals new offensive playbook and defensive playbook that he has to learn. And also, he obviously, when Coach Lewis says he's got to refine his route running and stuff, I think maybe the wide receiver coach here kind of has preferences that maybe Travis wasn't doing, or maybe it's just overall refining his skills. But either way, it's exciting to see that Lewis is talking about Travis Hunter and saying that he has a role in offense. And so I think we already know that Travis was going to be contributing on offense somewhat. But I think if he's putting this much expectations on young Mr. Hunter, that means his role is going to be pretty big. So that's exciting for Colorado fans moving forward. And I'll try to find any videos and stuff I could manage of these two, because the first video I saw them, fantastic connection. You could just tell that Shedeur and Travis are close. And I think on the field and off the field, they will have a great relationship. And on the field, it could help lead to a lot of wins. Before we move on, it is the tournament is heating up now, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook app, or sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from moneyline to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay, so don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets. And when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Okay, now we got to talk about Shedeur Sanders. I extremely high on him. The coach is extremely high on him. I think some of the national media is pretty high on him as well. His arm strength is one of the best in the country. He obviously is a very savvy quarterback when it comes to the cerebral part of football. But 24/7 Sports is, let me get the name real quick so we all know. Raymond Lucas Jr., he ranked the Pac-12 quarterbacks. And so it was Pac-12 football quarterback rankings 2023. And so he ranked all 12 of them, the projected starter. Well, I mean, for most of the programs, they already know who the starter is. But for Stanford, Cal, Arizona State, I guess you could argue, and UCLA, they are the only programs where it's kind of like a question mark, but even then there's a favorite. But he ranked, the 12 Pac-12 quarterbacks, and Shedeur Sanders came in at number 7, which ahead of names like Jaden Delora, freshman Dante Moore, Drew Pine at Arizona State, and then Sam Jackson the 5th, and then Ari Patu, which are Cal and Stanford's respective quarterbacks. He says Shedeur Sanders hasn't played a snap of FBS football, and he's already incredibly popular. Most of this has to do with his father and Colorado head coach Deion Sanders, but it's a product of the 40 touchdowns he threw last season at FCS Jackson State. We know that the SWAC isn't built of teams that had the talent of the JSU Tigers, but arm talent and good decision tend to translate to the Power 5 level. He possesses both. There will be growing pains for Sanders, as there were for Washington State quarterback Cam Ward last season, but his talent shouldn't be overlooked. Sanders is a former 4-star recruit and had an extensive offer list coming out of high school. He was merely in the FCS ranks to play under his father. Sanders is going to be problematic at the Power 5 level, and he's been vocal about his love for Colorado's scheme and weapons, which only adds to the excitement for his debut against TCU. Now, I ranked the quarterbacks a while back by tier. I think ranking them by number is hard because, one, we don't really know what to expect from like the bottom 5 in this list. And I think it's more so, I don't want to ranking them by number just means there has to be a 1 through 12. And like, I think it's easier or more fair to rank them by This group is proven. This group has potential, and this group not proven. So I ranked. I mean, I could tell you my rankings. I had Caleb Williams, Cam Rising, Bo Nix, and Michael Penix as my top four. And they were like the guys that could get you to the promised land. Those are the guys, most proven guys in the conference. Then I had DJ Uyunglele, Cam Ward, and then I think Shedeur and Jaden Delora. And those three were my they were my wild cards because I think Jaden Delora, DJ, and Shedeur can all guide a team to success. But they have a lot to work on, I guess, if you will. Like DJ had a decent year at Clemson, was still replaced by Cade Klubnik, and so now he has to kind of revamp his career, if you will. Shedeur, different situation. He's just moving up a level, and so I think that's that's why he's a wild card. Because I think he's going to be really good. But again, who knows if and this is just hypothetically speaking. I'm not saying this is going to happen, so relax in the comments. But who knows if maybe he struggles a little bit at Colorado the first year. And so wild card, either he's going to boom or bust type of guy. And then Cam Ward, he was one of the top quarterback transfers not this year, but the year prior. And he had some shining moments, and then he had some moments where it's like, oof. And so I think those guys are my wild card guys. But I think Shedeur at 7, I think if you're looking at it from what these guys have done right now, ahead of him, I think the only quarterbacks that I agree with, because DJ's right ahead of him, and I think he could be ahead of DJ. If I'm being honest, I think DJ, while he does have the intangibles and he had some production, I just don't think he's proven it enough to be higher than Shedeur, who's had more success just at a lower level. Cam Ward, I think, could also be right with or below Shedeur. But I agree with Cam Rising, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and Caleb Williams for now. I'm not saying that'll be the same, but I think Shedeur at 7 is a little low. I think he could easily be up to 5 right now. And this is just preseason rankings. I think he has potential to be in the top 3, top 2. It's just going to take time, and we haven't seen him play yet. And so 7 is interesting. I don't know if I would put him at there. I think I had him when I ranked him, I think I had him at 5 or 6. And this is just solely based off of the top 3 are really good. You got Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Heisman contenders, Heisman winner and contender. Bo Nix could have been a Heisman contender if Oregon stepped it up quicker this past season and didn't have that loss to Georgia. He probably would have been in that conversation. And then Cam Rising is just a proven vet. So it's hard to just like bump one of those guys down, but I think Shedeur has potential to do that. So Shedeur Sanders comes in at number 7. I think he should be higher. I think he could end up higher. I think it'll be interesting to see, obviously, when things are all said and done, where Shedeur ends up, and where this Colorado team ends up, because one, they have a lot of new faces. Shedeur has a lot of new weapons to work with. He's got Jimmy Horn, who's been a standout. Xavier Weaver from USF, who was one of USF's all-time best receivers. Travis Hunter. They got Jordan Craig. Excuse me, I don't know why I was blanking on his name. Jordan Tyson. Not Jordan Craig. I combined the two. Jordan Tyson. So he's just got a lot of weapons to work with, and I think people are kind of nervous to give Shedeur the preferential treatment right now. But he's got guys like Montana Lemonius, Craig returning, Chase Soul, Jordan Tyson, Ty Robinson, and then obviously the guys I mentioned who are coming from the portal. And maybe they add another portal guy from Jackson State and Shane Hooks. So Travis Hunter, I mean, he'll be there too. Shedeur Sanders is going to have weapons, and I do think he could easily exceed this rank of number 7, because that's not even, I feel like at a minimum, he's one of the best he should be in the top half, I guess is what I'm saying. So Shedeur Sanders, I think he'll exceed number 7. I think he has the weapons to do so. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up after the conclusion of the season, or even in year 1. I think it'll be interesting to see where he ends up, just because I'm at the conclusion of like the first few weeks. I mean, not year 1. That's the end of the season. What am I talking about? Because they got a tough first month and a half. And so I think we'll kind of be able to tell how good Shedeur is immediately. Obviously, there's going to be growing pains, so you don't want to judge him based off the first 4 weeks. But I think we're going to see how good he could be. Because if he lights it up against some of the tougher teams, then he's going to have to skyrocket up these rankings. So very excited to see what's in store for Shedeur. And I think Sean Lewis kind of hyping him up, and everybody's been talking about how good he's been doing. I think good things are in store. Now we got to talk about the Pac-12 media rights deal. It's been a popular subject as of late because the Pac-12, we basically know that they're sticking together, but we don't know what the deal is with their media rights situation. So let's go back to, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe last week. I don't remember. We'll go within the last 2 weeks. The Big 12 was basically saying that they're coming for the four corner schools, so Colorado, Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah. And then they were going to poach them as soon as the deal wasn't as good as they'd hoped. And then reports came out that the Pac-12 was fine. And then the Big 12 again was like, we're coming for you. We're going to poach you. And then we actually got confirmation from Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State that they're staying true to the Pac-12. They will not be leaving for the Big 12, and that they weren't having discussions with the Big 12, which we all know that last part maybe a little stretch of the truth, because we knew there was some conversations. But we had 3 of the 4 corner schools kind of come out and be like, we're staying in the Pac-12. We're all in. And then the Pac-12 was reportedly super close to having a deal. And then yesterday, so Wednesday, March 22nd, Andrew Marchand reported that the Pac-12 is not nearly as close as people were kind of alluding to. They were supposed to have a meeting on Tuesday, but the meeting was rescheduled to Wednesday. And so on a recent episode of Marchand and RN, the sports media podcast by the New York, I believe they're both from the New York Times. Marchand said ESPN's not close to a deal with the Pac-12. Oh, let me go back. ESPN and Fox were also reported as players, along with Amazon and Apple. And then people were refuting the Fox part. And so it's just like a back and forth ping pong match of whose sources are saying what. But either way, it says ESPN's not close to a deal with the Pac-12. Amazon is interested, but only at their number. And I'm not getting a feeling that something is imminent with them. Apple is someone we've mentioned. I wrote a story a couple weeks ago as a possibility. Apple does sort of seem to fit what they want to do. So Pac-12 to Apple, cool, maybe. And then he continued saying, it is possible. This is about Apple. It is possible that they could have a secret deal and it's coming out soon. I guess that's possible. There's no indication. I'm not saying that. I think they take forever. They took forever with the NFL, so I don't think they're going to jump for the Pac-12. But I will say that if you talk about money and where the Pac-12 possibly could get it, I'd say Apple is the place that'd be willing to pay them money. But they definitely wouldn't want all in. Everything from the Pac-12 would go to Apple. I'm not saying that's happening, but if it's not any of those 3, I'm not sure where they're going. It's a dicey situation for the Pac-12, and then. So obviously, then the article continues to talk about how the 4 corner schools are backing out. So I think what we're gathering here is, one, I think if I had to, like, just dissecting the contradictoriness of Fox, I think Fox Sports is either out or they're not really, like, they need a better number to come back in. I saw that maybe Fox would be interested in coming in for a lesser price. The Pac-12, I think if I had to guess what their deal would be, it'd be ESPN and a combination of probably Apple, an ESPN Apple combo. And that'd be a great deal for the Pac-12. Be a great deal for Colorado because, one, we have to think of the Pac-12 network. Nobody was watching that thing. I worked there. I was a production assistant, so I was making all the highlights that people were not watching. I was making all the game highlights and all that stuff. But the Pac-12 network was not really accessible. You had to have special TV packages, and it was hard to find. Apple, most people have Apple. If you don't, you're missing out on great shows like Ted Lasso. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by. No, I'm just kidding. Just love Ted Lasso. But either way, people will get Apple. It's cheaper to subscribe to Apple for, I think it's $10.99 a month or like $13.99 a month. Apple has experienced this is a good deal for the Pac-12, really, because Apple's already worked out the kinks. They have the MLS deal. They did some NFL stuff, and if honestly, in terms of like the Pac-12 and Apple working together, you could find a way to merge the Pac-12 network and have them work under Apple or whatever it may be. But the deal, I think, would makes a lot of sense for the Pac-12. Apple is already kind of established in the sports world. Most people, I feel like, have it or would be willing to get it because you know where the games are going to be. I think I think that sounds like a dumb thing to say, but I think honestly, accessibility is important, and the Pac-12 hasn't always been accessible as of late. And so having your programs, your favorite program be accessible, huge. And then I think ESPN, someone's going to take Pac-12 after dark. That unfortunately the Pac-12 like pigeonholed themselves into playing their games at like 10:30 Eastern time. But Pac-12 after dark is the staple of the Pac-12, and someone's going to want to televise it. And someone like ESPN, who always wants and needs programming, will gladly hop on the Pac-12 after dark train. I think ESPN's kind of just, I mean, everybody in this deal is trying to get the best deal for themselves. That's not a hot take by any means, but I think ESPN just trying to work the numbers, work the Pac-12 a little bit. I did see one suggestion that was interesting, and at first I thought it would be a good deal, but then I don't know. It depends. Pac-12 football on Fridays. I don't. At first I was for it because I was like, yeah, the Pac-12 will have the day to themselves. Maybe the MAC I think probably plays on the MAC plays on like Tuesdays and stuff. So who knows where they play? I think they play. There is football Monday through Friday basically. But then I was thinking about it. It's like all the recruits will be missing the games because they're all going to be having their own games. And the Friday slot just maybe, unless it's like the best game of the week, like it's like Pac-12 game of the week and it's like USC versus Utah or Colorado versus USC, that'd be exciting. That'd get a lot of attention from the fans. I think fans will watch football regardless of where it is. But I think being on Saturday would probably be more of a priority. But I do like, if it's going to be Friday, it's got to be a game of the week situation. Like, don't put Washington State Cal on Friday and then expect to have blow up numbers because people are going to go out. People are going to do their things on Friday nights. But I guess all of this is just alluding to the Pac-12 is maybe not as close as we previously thought they were to a deal. The deal, it's between four outlets right now. It's ESPN, Apple, Amazon, Fox, and we know that the four corner schools are loyal to the Pac-12. I think again, it's just a matter of time, and the Pac-12 has really been milking this whole thing. And then I don't know if it's because they thought they were going to get a massive number earlier, or if they're just trying to play the game and see what happens. But what we do know is the Pac-12 taking some time for this deal. We also know that Sean Lewis is hyped for Shedeur Sanders, as you guys should be. I mean, Shedeur Sanders could be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And then he's ranked a little low by 24/7 Sports, but I think he could exceed that rankings. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Buffs your first listen of every day. For your second listen, check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Experts Isaac Shad and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know on and off the court. Plus, here for big name experts, coaches, and players throughout the basketball landscape. Locked On College Basketball is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. We too here at Locked On Buffs are available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, comment. I appreciate the comments and support. We love talking to you guys, and we're excited for where the season will take us. Have a great day. I will see you guys tomorrow on Friday. Again, Locked On Buffs. I'm Kevin Borba. Thank you guys for listening.